And if you're looking to change your life, you're looking to become an entrepreneur, you're looking to chase your dream or whatever, stop making excuses and just go. Just do it. You can never begin a journey until you take that first step. If you're constantly going in circles trying to get something perfect and you're not progressing in any way, this is the perfection trap. Having a good mentor as an entrepreneur is really, it's a must. But there are some aspects to it that are tough to get beyond, such as, making that person understand your situation better so that they can help you.
They said it was too late, that the best years were behind him. But he wasn't done. He was just getting dangerous. This podcast isn't for the overnight success stories. It's for the ones who are still in the middle of the damn fight. The late bloomers, the blue-collar visionaries, the people who refuse to settle. This isn't a comeback. It's a fucking uprising.
And welcome to Electrician Entrepreneur. Podcast journeying, the podcast documenting my personal journey from a 20-year electrical construction vet to entrepreneur, business owner, and successful entrepreneur, business owner, and now with and now new and improved with my beautiful wife, Julie McCusker, who is also joining the journey in her own right from W-2 to owner.
Yeah.
So I guess, kind of starting this podcast a little bit in a rush today, and I'm not 100% set up, and we're on a kind of a schedule, so I don't want to waste any time here. So, I got my notes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now, and I've got some, we'll just kind of do a real, a recap of sorts real quick. So the podcast, the history of this podcast, this is, something I started doing as kind of a, what the fuck? As a part of the experience to become motivational speaker, life coach, etc., which somewhere down the line is where I hope to end up. That's my dream, my calling. At any rate, so the idea here is we cover every week what's been going on for the previous week, and to give an overall kind of experience of what it's like to go from nothing to becoming a successful entrepreneur. I mean, not 100% nothing, but you know what I mean. So
yeah.
to go from working for someone to working for yourself, finding financial independence, and really just kind of chase your dream, chase that which you're being called to do. So for whatever reason, this what the freaking what? So for whatever reason, it's my computer's all messed up. So now I don't know where I left off in. I'm going to figure out what page I'm on in my book. So I guess I'll skip that. At any rate, I apologize for being kind of all over the place. I'm sorry. So do you want to kind of what? Yeah. So you're just waiting for me to kind of lead this whole thing and get it going.
Yes.
See, this you might as well call this a live show. Because it's going to be treated like a live show, I guess, because it's, very, I'm just not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
We're rushing it.
Yep.
So we'll learn something from this and try not to rush things next time. So this week, just to kind of get us, just to kind of lay out the framework, we're going to go, we're going to talk, the previous week has kind of brought up a couple of subjects like it does each week. And a couple of things is we're going to talk about open tabs and what that means. Open tabs in relation to ADHD. And, so pretty much anyone that kind of sits on the spectrum somewhere, which is almost everyone, I'd say 99.9999% of the world is on the spectrum somewhere. Right. But at any rate, so chances are this is going to have some impact to whoever's listening to this, because this is, it's a real insight. And I think that, you should really listen in for this. Addition to that, the discernment filter, facing criticism with skin in the game, the flow of surrender, baptism business, and the white flag. The discussion of surrender and what that really means. And so just to kind of read through, here's our hook. If you have 50 tabs open in your brain in your business, you aren't multitasking, you're leaking power. Today we're going to do a 95% audit. So, kind of get us started here. What do we mean by open tabs?
Just, spreading yourself a little too thin, I think. Lots of stuff in the old brain box that's keeping you from moving forward. You're just spinning your wheels.
So, let me put it to you in terms. I'll put it to you in terms of an internet browser. Okay. And for those that are computer illiterate, I'll try to kind of talk a little bit more in layman's terms so that you can understand. So every computer has a limited amount of memory, active memory, not storage memory. So what we mean by active memory is the ability to keep at any particular moment a bunch of information in mind. So you have a limited number on that, and which and this is completely different from storage. So with that memory, with everything that you've got going on, every window that you open and everything that uses memory, some use more than others. Some require extra attention.
Mm-hmm.
So consider this kind of like an energy audit, right? So if you, if you're trying to do 10 things at one time, that's, some of those things are going to take more energy than others. And so realistically, some things might get done easier and some things will probably be a lot harder to do. So this is kind of the comparison between computers and that, right? So let's say you've got Chrome open on your computer or even on your phone, and you open up, you have a tab running, you're maybe reading an article or whatever, and you click a link, you open up a new tab, you still have the other tab open. The new tab plays a video, and in this process, you see another link, you click that. Now you've got a third tab open. Now each one of those tabs takes memory, right?
Right.
And so the more you open, the less memory you have available. And the less memory you have available, the more resources are needed to process everything that's going on. Thing is you're only looking at one tab. You can only really focus on one tab at one time.
Right.
So now this is essentially how we transpose. So I go from the comparison from human to computer to human, and now we're going to bring it back around again. So what we mean by we can only focus on one tab at a time. I mean, we could do split tabs and so on. And just like we can in real life, we can try to multitask.
Right.
Realistically, at any given second, any nanosecond, whatever, you're only focused on one thing. It is only possible for the human brain to have one thing focused on. But realistically, you could have 20 other things, 20 other open tabs in the back of your head that have not been resolved.
Right.
So 20 things. And so this is what we're kind of getting at. So to kind of give you a little bit of backstory, because so essentially here's the deal. I have, this week I got to a point where I says, I have a lot of things that I started, I did not finish. Open tabs. That's what we mean by open tabs. Right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is, or so to give you kind of an idea, when we started this podcast back in August, and at the time we were hoping that that you would have the time and energy to be able to focus on providing administrative assistance to me while I try to create this business and do the podcast and all these other things. And one of those administrative tasks was going to be to build a podcast website,
right?
Which you did. Was that me or you? We're dinging on the... What the hell is that? Is that your...
Yeah, I think so. Sorry.
Nobody gives a fuck. At any rate. So you did it, but we were hoping for more, to have more.
Right.
So you kind of gave us a landing page. It told my story, basically what podcast is about. You had some links to the various different areas where we were publishing the podcast. So it covered the basics.
Right.
But I was hoping to have more. I wanted to maybe have a community there, maybe have a blog so that I can create some articles and have some stuff to read. But most importantly, I wanted an RSS feed, which is it's a way to basically get a list of news articles or whatever from a source and put it on your website in a format, and format it in any way you wish or whatever. And we can do that, through Spotify or YouTube or whatever. We can get an RSS feed of the podcast and have that actually on the podcast website, which we never got around to doing.
Right.
And, but you got taxed with a lot of other things to do. At the time, you were actually in a big rush to get a bunch of, craft projects done because you had a craft fair coming up.
Yes.
And so, and that was taking up quite a bit of your energy. You're kind of sapped for energy in general anyway. Like myself, I mean, we're both kind of going through, our own energy deficiencies on a day-to-day basis. So it's, there's plenty of reasons it just kind of got left behind. And now what I want to talk about, and this is a really important thing. So to become an entrepreneur, the biggest mantra is stop trying for perfect. And that was actually my first episode, right, on the podcast, was to say, so perfection is a lie. You can never be perfect. You can't. So stop striving for perfection, right?
Right.
And if you're looking to change your life, you're looking to become an entrepreneur, you're looking to chase your dream or whatever, stop making excuses and just go. Just do it. I mean, you can never begin a journey until you take that first step. So, I mean, you can do all the preparation you want and call that part of your journey. In reality, if you're not actually doing something concrete that moves the needle, moves you a step further towards your dream, towards your goals, you're not officially on the journey.
Right.
So at any rate, and I apologize. I am a smoker. I want to quit, but I just, and like I said, this was rushed, so I'm just jumping right in and smoking while I'm broadcasting. At any rate, broadcasting, recording, whatever. At any rate, so that was an open tab for me. It was something I desperately needed to get done was the podcast website. I really wanted that done. At the time, I was also was trying to, and I kind of wanted to create a school based, SKOOL, which is a community-based learning platform or group platform, in which, you charge people money to join your group and you offer them all kinds of things to learn and so on. And it becomes a community-based service in which you can profit. And so I wanted to build that around the podcast as well, offering up this community for our potential audience. And so that this was another open tab that I had. And then of course there was the business that I was working on, which was a different business model than it is today. But, there was that. And, so I opened up a lot of tabs.
Yep.
And then my neck. And so by default, so we could call the neck the blue screen of death.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened when that happened? We shut down a bunch of tabs by default.
Yeah.
So the business model changed and desperately seeking this community-based learning platform started to kind of, and it was a big question of what I'm doing and faith and confidence and all this other stuff. It was literally like a blue screen of death. So we shut down all that stuff. And when we reset the computer, to stay with the analogy, when we reset the computer, we, what essentially happened is, as Chrome will do, it asked me to restore previous pages. So that's kind of what happened.
Yep.
So I suddenly got the motivation and the inspiration to write the book. And so what came up with these restored pages was a very similar, the dream was still there. And the dream is just slightly changing shape, as in I was beginning to understand it better. So thing is that podcast, which did come back, still did not have a finished website.
Right.
And so now I start this new approach towards the business and everything. And I've got a business page on LinkedIn. And I'm supposed to do all this marketing on LinkedIn. But my business page has nothing. So there's another open tab. And the list can go on. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I week before last, was kind of in that, like, all right, the book is up, is digital, it's up digitally. You can buy it in a PDF form and you can read it. It's and you can also pre-order into the community, which is the consulting business, my initial startup. And you can do all that stuff, which is great. Excuse me. But I'm like, so I need a real strong marketing campaign. This is another open tab for me. I could not figure out or brainstorm a marketing campaign that made sense to me. Everything just basically came back to post on LinkedIn. And I'm like, first of all, I'm not hitting my audience. Secondly, it only goes so far. There's got to be more. There's got to be more that I can do. I mean, nobody knows who the hell I am. Nobody's heard of Liam McCusker before.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what the Iron Academy is all about. Nobody knows what elevated velocity electrical consulting is. Never heard of it before.
Yeah.
How do you get that out there? And this is my challenge, is figuring out the best way to market the whole thing. I really need to market it, but every plan I keep coming up with just keeps everything that I keep working through just keeps coming back to LinkedIn, and it's not enough. So this created this massive amount of frustration that I got to a point where I said, okay, you know what? I've been growing on a spiritual level, on a personal level outside of the business. And I decided to kind of step back and just focus on that and let that kind of continue to play out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You had your own things that you were involved in that I was very interested in supporting. And so this kind of brought us to this point, which I just want to, I keep forgetting to start the show with my timer. Although I guess I could just use the clock because we have to end by a certain time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, so the what was I saying?
I was focused on my things. You were very interested in.
So I stepped back.
Yeah.
And of course I've got, I've with my journaling, I'm every day I'm reminding myself to look, I got to move the needle forward on the business and everything. But my answer to this every day is, rather than feeling guilty that I'm not doing what I should be, I'm like, well, you know what? That's not what I should be doing right now. I'm doing what I should be doing right now, which is refocusing.
Right.
There's a reason, sometimes, yes, there's self-sabotage involved. I do have ADD, so there's lack of focus, kind of bouncing my focus around until I hit that thing that gives me the dopamine hit. But in this case, it was like, every time that I kept trying to push myself back to, this is what I should be doing, and trying to force this productivity on myself, I kept going, but it's not, and frustration mounts, and I get closer and closer to the point of saying, maybe this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually kind of close to that. Is this really the way I want to go? Is this really what I want to do? I mean, I don't know that's, so it's questioning of the faith and everything. And so this time around, I'm saying, no, I'm doing exactly what I need to do, which is to refocus, not get bogged down on making sure I'm doing something productive. This is productive. And so I put all of my energy into just letting myself feel the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And then this week, beginning of this week, this previous week, after our podcast, we went to, which we'll talk about this a little later. You had your baptism.
Yeah.
And we did that. And that ended up being a really very spiritual day for me. Never mind you. So you gave me a gift by having me, come in and support you and witness your baptism. That actually provided quite a bit more for me. And I had this, profound spiritual experience of my own that day, which, that's for us.
Right.
I'm not going to get all crazy about that here, but essentially it just lands on, I feel very validated right now in the direction that I'm headed. And so at any rate, that's when I said, you know what, forget the business for a minute. I need to start finishing the tasks and closing out my tabs.
Yep.
And so that's what this week turned into for me, was just that, just we're going to start one thing at a time, hyper focus on that one thing until we can get it done, get it out of the way. Once it's done, it's done. And, I don't need to do anything more with it. And I can put my focus on the next thing. And there is a lot of progress in this. It's actually a great deal of progress. And what I kind of want to, I guess the psychological concept is called the Zeigarnik. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The Zeigarnik effect, which is the mental hum of unfinished tasks that drains your cognitive battery. So now here's the thing about an ADD brain. The more attuned to ADD you are, the closer you are to that. Unfinished tasks, things that you need to get done, are on your brain, whether you admit to it or not. That open tab is constantly blinking in the back of your head. So, for some people, an open tab is just like, yeah, I got to get back to that and I got to get that done. It's something, and I mean, I'm making a great case, of course, for always finish what you start, right?
Right.
But for ADD, it's not just this is a good idea, it's a must. If you don't finish what you start, that eats away at your soul.
Yeah.
So the, and this really, it's overwhelming. You have this thing blinking, you have this thing blinking, you have this other thing blinking. I mean, you got 5-6 things that you've started to do that you wanted to to get done or whatever. It's an open tab and it's back there in the back of your brain blinking. Now, some things would just fade away. Those things are probably not that important. It's probably not something that, that really adds to your calling or your dream or whatever. Those things will tend to fade. Things that don't fade, you have attached some massive importance between that and your dream, or your calling, or whatever is the most important to you. So it's really important to understand, first of all, yes, let's go back and we'll touch on that for a second. Finish what you started, right?
Right.
Anytime. So now this is where we have a real conflict between what all the successful entrepreneurs, all the life coaches, and everybody else out there is saying. Here's a conflict that nobody really talks to you about. Nobody talks about is when forgetting about the perfection becomes, well, okay, but go back and finish what you started. The whole forget about perfection comes from, is if you're constantly going in circles trying to get something perfect and you're not progressing in any way, this is the perfection trap. Yeah. Right? But if you're not finishing a task to a point that reaches what your ultimate goal for that task was in some fashion, so you have to understand the difference between perfection of that goal and completion of that goal. In reality, the website was finished without being perfect when you did it, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't finished as a concept.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I had a problem, where I was stuck. Now, did I had it finished to usability, right?
Yeah.
So I could move forward, and I did. But at some point, you have to circle back and go from usability to concept
Mm-hmm.
and finish the concept. Otherwise, it's just an open tab,
Mm-hmm.
and it just remains there as an unfinished task. You don't. So this is the lesson. What this is what I'm trying to get at. What I'm the main point of my message here is that to you know, if you're going to seek a major change in your life, and you're going to seek you know, something more meaningful, chase your dream, good, you know, answer your calling, whatever it may be. If you're going to do that, then just, you know, whatever it is you're doing, get it usable enough to get started and get started.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Don't get stuck on it's not good enough. If it's usable, it's good enough. It can always get better later.
Mm-hmm.
And then get started, start the journey. But, you know, you also don't need to forget about that thing. You know, it's something you started that you will have to go back to. If it's usable, but not, see, you know, damn, a little verklempt. If you're not, you know, if it still hasn't reached concept, if it still hasn't become, you know, what you envisioned when you started it to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
then after you've gotten started, you know, whether it's, I mean, so in my case, let's say, you know, we had some sort of forum that was part of it initially, and we had, say, 30, 40 people that were all talking on this thing. That doesn't mean that I still can't go back and bring it up to the concept.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever the concept is, don't make an excuse not to go back and finish it, bring it to the concept. And so this really, I mean, it kind of brings us to, I don't know what sawdust in the closet has anything, how that has anything to do. So you're going to have to explain this to me. But this kind of brings us to you in you know, so how does this relate to you in terms of open tabs and the things that you're not completing, that you really need to get completed?
Well, I finished everything but the quotes, the construction quotes from
All of the paperwork
paperwork
for
the common capital. So that tab is still open. I started more or less prepping the space, and I literally found sawdust in the closet. So that is kind of like a new tab.
Well, so let's take a step back. I just want to paint a little bit of a picture for our audience. So, of course, not everybody in our audience knows this story and where you're at. So you're a dog groomer.
Correct.
You're opening a dog grooming salon in our house.
Yeah.
And you're going to use the breezeway as the salon.
Correct.
Which is this is the room that joins the house to the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a nice space. It's a pretty big space.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you say? It was 14 by 11?
14 by 15.
14 by 15. So it's a decent space. I'm not going to try to do the math right now for square footage, but but at any rate, so it's a decent sized space. Now, as it exists currently, we have a closet there that's basically a makeshift pantry of sorts.
Right.
So one side of it was sort of like a coat rack, being that it's in the breezeway, I'm assuming. That's why it was designed that way. And the other side is, you know, shelving and stuff for you know, for our food items or what have you.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been using the space for. The coat side, however, has been kind of just ignored for the last 8 years
At least.
And so So now you're in the process of redesigning this space, and what you now not getting rid of the closet.
Correct.
You're keeping the outside structure of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's essentially the corner of the room
Mm-hmm.
against the kitchen and the back wall, and the and you know and so there's you got two structural walls that you can't get rid of anyway, and then there's an additional half wall of sorts, or well, I mean short wall between the entryway to the kitchen and and the breeze that's
Yes.
right there. So just I think I painted more than enough picture, huh?
Yeah.
So at any rate, so this is and so the idea here is that you're keeping that wall next to the doorway,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the other two walls which can't go, and you're going to put your tub in there.
Yep.
Okay, there's our picture.
Yeah.
So now you're cleaning this out.
Correct. Oh, I'm cleaning it out, and I discover sawdust in the closet, which is an indicator of could be an indicator of termites, carpenter ants. Who knows? So that's just another new tab in my browser, so to speak. Furthermore, I did get some. What?
Go no.
I did get some
You got some quotes.
quotes.
So you're closer to closing that tab.
So I'm closer to closing that tab, but one of I'm gonna put vinyl down on the floor to make it waterproof and PP proof and all of that good stuff. And the room is a decent size, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a postage stamp, and they wanted $3,000.
Yeah,
just to lay the vinyl.
So to explain the essentially, and this is, I'm not a flooring contractor, but I worked in construction for 20 years, and I think that this this was essentially a very short-sighted way of quoting the job, and I don't mean to disparage them. Maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe they only deal with that particular size, but essentially the idea is that they had 12-foot rolls
Right.
of vinyl. And so because it's a 12-foot roll and it's 14 feet at the shortest dimension, they would have to charge for two separate rolls.
Correct.
And so it's, in other words, two separate lengths of 12-foot vinyl,
right,
or widths or whatever. So, which is rather short-sighted. It's like, well, hold on a minute. Why can't you use a different size? I'm sure they have other sizes. And in reality, I mean, I've seen a lot of construction over the years. I know there are other ways to lay vinyl.
Anyway.
So, but the point is this is why it was so high.
Right. So I'm seeking out other options, in terms of companies and flooring. So that's tab number 3.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of, just, it's a lot of hurry up and wait right now.
What? So hold on. No, let's get to the psychology here. Right.
Yeah.
So you've got, so now why was getting the quotes the last thing to do? Why was it so hard for you to get through it?
I don't think it was that hard. I
Well, I mean, so when you're referring to it as an open tab, right?
Yeah.
So it is an open tab.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, but I mean, is this a memory hog? Is it an energy drain?
No, not really.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a mix up in comparisons.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, my biggest drain right now.
not to take away from it, because this is part of your experience and we want to hear
Right.
about this, but
you know, I mean, people got right back to me right away. People came over. It was relatively cut and dry. I mean, you know, I didn't encounter any BS.
Probably the biggest BS you had to encounter was the stupid electrician.
Yeah.
Just dragging his feet, getting to you with that electrical quote.
Exactly.
Those freaking electricians, I'm telling you. You know, they're such prima donnas. Like, oh, but the conditions have to be just right. And then I'll quote. Oh. Right?
Right.
You know, and as Dave is probably saying to himself as he's listening to this, he's probably saying, yeah, and he needed to draw on the box a few diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, you know, I think that I think the thing that, you know, we need to, you know, to recognize here is that I don't think it's so much in the contracting or anything. When did you start this thing with Common Capital?
I want to say
3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
Maybe the beginning of April.
So about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And why did it take 4 weeks?
Because there was a lot of stuff, a lot of hoops I had to jump through. You know, I had to write a business plan, and then I had to write up lists of materials I would need or equipment. And then I had to do homework. I had to do these modules. And, you know, it was just a lot of baby steps to get to this point.
Can we enter the accountability zone for a minute?
Okay.
Are you comfortable with that?
What are you going to do to me?
It's not what I'm going to do to you. But you know, just if I may, do you think any part of the amount of time you spent on doing any of this, do you think that you dragged your feet in any way?
No.
I
think I was on top of the whole darn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty motivated to get things done.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just want to point out that we had several conversations along the way in which you would say to me, well, now I'm just sitting here waiting.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I can do. You don't think there's anything with that statement? Any?
No, because, you know, I'm working with a woman over there, and she gives me the tasks. I complete the tasks, and then we wait a week and meet again.
Okay.
I could have done some reading. I could have done extraneous things for my own growth.
Okay. So, well, yes, the personal growth is a big thing, but I'm going to take the moment again to remind you of conversations that we've had. What do you know about bookkeeping?
I know very little about bookkeeping.
So I'm putting you to task on our podcast. So do you think that it would be wise at this point to maybe learn some stuff about bookkeeping?
Yes, that probably would.
What about scheduling? What are you going to do with scheduling? Are you just going to keep a scheduler?
No, I'm going to work with a program, an app.
Okay.
Well, it's not really an app. It's a computer program.
This is scheduling software.
Scheduling software, correct.
Right. So, what about what are you planning on doing in terms of marketing your business?
Largely on Facebook, and Instagram. But I am also going to do some print
Mhm.
advertising.
What do you know about marketing?
I don't know anything about marketing.
Okay. So maybe there's something there, right?
Yeah.
And so now the point here isn't what have you not done. The point is what can you be doing? So it, everything that we do, everything that we're learning in terms of our business is also very relatable to personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
So personal growth, of course, this is this is the subject matter of my dream, right? Is helping people with their own personal growth, whether it's through their electrical contracting business, or contracting in general, um, whether it's through something like that, but also in everyday life, personal growth is
Mm-hmm.
so far be it from me to leave out any idea on how I can help you with personal growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the point here isn't, is to point out that, when we're finding ourselves in periods of hurry up and wait, there's always something that we can do that moves us, that continues to move us further. Why is that important? Now, this isn't just it isn't just a matter of busy work, but it is essentially kind of the point. Now, busy work, by definition, really is just work that you're doing that doesn't do anything for you.
Right.
It's going to have no real special outcome. But in terms of busy work that actually, the one thing that absolutely can never be taken away from you and that costs very little, if not nothing, is learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one thing that you and I are both guilty of, by the way, is having clear written down, this is our roadmap to how we get to here. And, we have vagaries, and I've never written anything down. I know you have though, but there's some vagaries. So you do have a complete list of everything you should do. And I just made a point is like, bookkeeping is something you should, you don't want to learn bookkeeping when you've already got, say $1,000 in the bank. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you've already had, say, 50 customers.
Right.
That's not when you want to start learning your bookkeeping, because at that point, what did you leave out? What expenses have you budgeted for? What about your taxes? Have you figured out how you're going to separate your taxes from the rest of your bill paying? So you don't, you know what I mean?
Right.
And to some degree, you already know some of this stuff just from personal finances, but that's not to say, the overall, the beginning to end on how all that's supposed to work for somebody, a solopreneur, as it were, how that solopreneur is going to handle all of the finances specifically to do with the business and how to separate that from the personal finances,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. So this is something really important that you really don't want to learn on the,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in this regard, these are the types of things that we can sit down and think, what do we need to know? What do we need to accomplish in order to be successful when those customers are coming through the door? You've got freaking, say, 4 or 5 clients booked on every day for the next week. When are you going to, have you figured out budgeted time for doing your bookkeeping? Is that something, how are you going to handle that? You're going to wear multiple hats.
Oh, definitely.
So this is kind of the point of the message here is, when there are certain things that we have to do that seem very much, these are the most important things that we have to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a very big open tab for you. Is all the things that you haven't thought of yet.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And so this is a very, very big important moment in which you know, when you say, okay, yeah, oh yeah, I do need to learn how to do the bookkeeping. I do need to figure out how I'm going to do the scheduling. I do need to figure out, you know, I mean, you've got all these other things laid out, and that's fantastic. And you're well on your way. You're making great progress. This is not taking away from that. This is simply saying, when you've handled the big, most important thing, and you're thinking to yourself, well, there's nothing else to do right now but wait. This is a great opportunity in that moment to figure out if there is something else you could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest importance behind that is the entrepreneur's tendency, that is to say, the new business owner's tendency to go, I don't think it's going to work. When your mind has time, it will start to cycle through all kinds of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And possibilities, not the same as opportunities,
Right.
but possibilities are not rooted in fact.
Mm-hmm.
They're either hopeful or they're fearful. Right?
Correct.
So we don't want to deal in possibilities. We want to deal with opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we find our opportunities? We actually engage intentionally in finding something that moves the needle, even if it's just, I need to learn more about this subject. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've pretty much gone through where you're at now in relation to the open tabs.
Mm-hmm.
To close out where I'm at with the open tabs is, I've been working consistently on the electriciantoentrepreneur.com website. If you were to go there right now, you would see a really shitty freaking theme
Yeah.
from WordPress. But, behind the scenes, I actually have it's pretty cool, the website that I'm coming up with, isn't it?
It is. It's very cool.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about that. And now the website's going to have a blog that you and I are both going to be using.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more so me than you, just nature of things. But, we'll be writing articles in our blog from time to time, which will have, comments available so people can interact and even critique our thoughts on various different things. It will also have an interactive list of the episodes from the podcast, and my story, your story, and so on and so forth, and some fancy graphics and fancy coding, and
Mm-hmm.
it's looking pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how wonderful it is for me to have accepted that this open tab, me working to close this and not worry so much about what I could be doing more with the consulting business. This is it's like weight is being pulled off of my shoulders. It's fantastic. And my striving, my constant striving for personal growth and enlightenment, this is exactly where I need to be. So I think this is, so closing the tabs was my probably one of my biggest insights of this past week.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get into the next biggest subject. So our next biggest subject, distinguishing between destructive noise and constructive friction. This is AI for you, right? What does that even mean? So the narrative here. So here's the deal. A couple of days ago, I finally just, and this is a big deal for me. Everybody struggles with fear in some form, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really kind of curious to hear what some of your fears are in relation to entrepreneurship and business ownership, striking out on your own and all that stuff. I think that, our audience and I would be very interested to kind of hear some insights on what your fears are and how you're handling them. One of my biggest fears is criticism. I struggle with criticism, and I handle it by saying, you're wrong.
That's true, folks.
Oh, so, hey, look, I'm human. I think especially
supposedly.
Wow. She winked at me. You said that with a wink. Bird. You look like you have something to say.
No, continue.
So the thing is that, I think that everyone has struggles with criticism in some fashion. Some people, like myself, is just, no, I'm sorry. I hear you. I accept that that's your point of view, but you're wrong. And therefore I discount everything you have to say. And I'm just going to walk away now. And this is, I used to handle criticism specifically from the specific person I'm going to talk about here in a second. I used to handle criticism with him by yelling at him. And he was my boss, and he'd give me some criticism and I'd be like, are you kidding? I mean, you must be crazy. I don't know that he, I think that he thought that I just gave up on the podcast altogether when we had our hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned to him the other day that we're doing it again. So if he's listening right now, I hope that he's getting a chuckle out of that because he probably, vividly remembers me freaking flying off the handle for almost what seemed like no reason at all. It was just, I'm not good with criticism. It's a really tough thing for me to get through. I don't know. I mean, I have to spend some more time with this. This is something that I think that I need to, that I should really grow with. I think that I'm a hell of a lot better than I used to be. Mm-hmm. Certainly over the past year, I have learned how to see an emotional response from within, build and analyze it enough to say, okay, now this is not responding to this the way I want to right now is not appropriate. We need to analyze what's actually happening a little bit more, sit with it, figure it out. A great example is, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, I think it was, at work, I was given a task to do on a piece of equipment I didn't know. I think I told this story last week, right? And so I went to do this task, came back, filled out the paperwork saying it was done. I apparently didn't do the work as it was prescribed because I didn't understand what they were actually asking. And so, I mean, could I have asked questions? Yes, I could have asked questions, and I probably should have. I'd rather not deal with this person because they're always looking for a way to smear my name. Well, in this instance, that not wanting to deal with them gave them a reason to smear my name. And he came back and said, he came back with a brand new work order, put it through official channels, and said that I, basically made it sound like I'm trying to show that work was being completed even when it was not. Right. Yeah, eye roll.
Yeah, sorry.
And so my initial reaction is to fly off the handle, right?
Right.
And I spent a good hour very angry because I can see right through everything he's doing. I know what he's trying to get me fired. This has been he made this clear to other people who have told me, yeah, no, he wants you to get fired. He very much made that very clear shortly after after he was done training me. So, and you know what? Great. I don't care that that's what he wants to do, but in the grand scheme of things, I really don't. In the moment, though, you're challenging my name and my reputation.
Right.
And this is an ego. This is a hit on my ego. And so my initial reaction is to fly off the handle. So I've learned after that hour, I was so bothersome. I journaled about it. I did some self-reflection, and then I went and found myself something to do that got my mind completely off of it. And I didn't react. I mean, I reacted by looking inward as opposed to actually reacting. And so the other day, I put together a promo code that essentially sells my book for free, so that I could send that promo code to my old boss, who I also asked prior to the neck injury. I asked, or to the neck flare up, I guess. Injury was already there, but prior to that, I asked him to be a mentor as well. I've come to realize that while it wasn't the best working relationship ever, he was always trying to help me grow. And so I asked him to mentor me as a business owner, from one business owner to another. He's a decent level of success in he's still running his business today. He's managed, his service department is, fantastic. And so a lot of reasons, and he was only ever trying to help me grow. So when I sent him the book, I even have an acknowledgement in the book to him in which I thank him for all of the support over the years, even if I didn't recognize it at the time. Initially he didn't think he was going to have the time, but I think, what probably happened was the curiosity got the better of him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So he made it sound like it would probably be weeks before he actually downloaded and read the book, but he went ahead and downloaded it that night, I guess. Or I think it was Thursday, and then I got the response Friday, I think. So he downloaded, he read the book, and he wrote me an email Friday morning, and he says, so here are some thoughts. Here's some, if I can give you some constructive criticism, this is what I would say. I had to, my initial reaction, so I read through the whole email, and I read through all of his points, and I showed it to you.
Yeah.
I didn't show you the interaction after that, which is so you're missing a big part of the context here. But our audience has no idea, so I'm just I'm not gonna go over the whole interaction. My response, my initial response, my internal reaction to it was, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why I sent it to you. I'm like, what do you think? I feel like I might I don't know. What do you think? Of course, your insight wasn't.
No, I had no insight.
It was not helpful.
No.
But that's okay, because by that point I had already kind of admitted to myself, you know what, I'm reacting to this criticism in an unproductive way. And so, And so I responded and I says, so here's, you know, you'll have to please forgive me. It's going to take me some time to digest this. I'm still learning how to take criticism. And I think that that's a very big moment for me. I don't know. I mean, his response to that email, I'm not, it's kind of hard to tell if he didn't even really touch on my taking criticism. He just kind of responded to the other points that I made in the in my initial response to him. But you know, I hope that he got the intention of that initial message to him was, you know me, you know that I don't like your opinion. You know, because you're giving me constructive criticism, but it's also, whether it's constructive or not, it's a hit on your ego. Criticism is criticism. It's always it's a hit on your ego. You know what? It's okay to be wrong. The problem is that, you know, psychologically, it's, you know, there's some pain involved in being wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be wrong because it hurts.
Yeah.
You know, because our ego tells us that, you know, we believe something that we're doing is correct. Our ego tells us that it is correct all the way through. And then when somebody says, well, you know, maybe there's a better way, which is constructive, as opposed to, but that's wrong, right. Which is not constructive. But, you know, maybe there's a better way. It's still criticism. And our ego says, well, you know, we don't care about constructive versus unconstructive. It's criticism.
Right.
And so there was, you know, and I wanted to bring this up and read this, but, you know, it's funny because after this whole interaction and everything, I got home that night. You know, I always read a few pages before I go to sleep. And I'm reading right now, Put Your Dream to the Test by John Maxwell. And I think at this point, anybody who's been following along with the podcast knows I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. So I'm reading this book, and it just so happened to talk about the cost of fear. So now he talks the specific subject matter is that you have to pay a price for your dream, and sometimes you have to pay a price multiple times, and the price is always different, and sometimes it's more than you care to bear.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost always more expensive than you expect it to be, but there is a cost to fear. And one thing that we all fear is criticism in some fashion. So I read through, you know, I just happened to read this, and, you know, in the same section I highlighted and I added to our notes, you know, John presents a 5-point checklist for whose criticism actually counts. Now, I'll say that Tim doesn't love me unconditionally. maybe as a friend, but I don't know. I mean, well, you know, I don't know. It's hard to say. And, you know, the bro code says we don't talk about that like that. So not like that. But aside from that, there's 5 points in this framework, which is, do they love you unconditionally? Number 2 is their agenda clean? In this case, his agenda's clean. He's right. not going to get anything from my success or failure. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make, you know, so his agenda's clean. Is he naturally supportive and not just a professional critic? Over the years, I think he's proven that he's supportive. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I don't think that he's ever had somebody work with him or under him at any point in his career where he wasn't supportive of them. I think he's just a naturally very supportive guy. I think when you get to the heart of the matter, he just wants to see everybody succeed in some fashion. You know, I think, for guys that have worked with him or for him, he'd rather see that success is for him. But but who can blame him for that? I mean,
Right.
But I think that just naturally speaking, he's, that he'd like to see people grow and become successful. I think that's just a natural thing. So 3, I would say yes. Number 2, yes. Number 3, yes. Number 4, will they stand by you after the advice is given? I don't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left, he had any number of reasons to just write me off for good. I wasn't I wasn't the greatest employee. I had a real attitude problem for many, many years. And I mean, so if he's listening, I'm sorry for that. But I think I've apologized before. So we'll just make that the official once and for all. I don't want to apologize for it for the rest of my life, but I had an attitude problem for many, many years. He had all the reason in the world to write me off. And when I made a conscious decision, I'm changing my life. I'm figuring out what my dream and passion is, and what I'm being called to do, and I'm going to chase that. And I just got this idea in my head that I'd give him a call and see if I could sit down and talk to him about it. And I did. And he said, yeah, come on over. I mean, yes, he would stand by me after the advice is given. Mm-hmm. I think that he's proven that. Does he have any actual skin in the game? And what that means does he have any success in the field? He's not a coach. So it's important we kind of look at this as just there's 2 different fields here. He's not a coach. But in the criticism in which he was offering was criticism in the area in which he is successful. He's a successful electrical contractor owner. Mm-hmm. The subject matter is about electrical contracting. So yes, he has actual success within the field. So he hits 4 out of the 5. Mm-hmm. I think 80% is passing, right?
Right.
So at any rate, so this is what it boils down to, right? So I got through this interaction without blowing up and everything, and we had a pretty good back and forth, and I finished it by saying, as a side note, you and I should get together and have some lunch sometime. We haven't, and and he said yes. So we're gonna, we haven't made any plans yet, but we will. He's still very much somebody that I can look forward to, and I think that even with all the time that's gone by since I originally asked him to mentor me, he's still looking to be my mentor, which is fantastic because I think it's, well, I mean, John talks about it all the time in his writing and in his speeches. Get a mentor. Mm-hmm. Nobody can do anything by themselves. Having a mentor is definitely a big, I mean, what that means is not just mentorship. It's, have a good team and all this and that. You can succeed with your business without having a team, but having a mentor will definitely help you to grow so that you can do your business more better. Maybe they, provide you with, maybe they heard about some new clipper that you never heard of and freaking, this is way better than anything you've used before, or whatever, hair dryer, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so there's definitely something that you can earn, get from that kind of a relationship. So it's very important that we all have a mentor. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually there's some talk about that in our notes here, about, that's something that you're considering doing. Am I right?
Yes.
I can't find that in the note. Is that in the notes or was that in the previous notes? I don't know. Don't worry about it. Just answer the question.
Yes. So it's kind of a yes and no. I do know a couple of groomer owners in the area that I could confer with and ask questions and kind of get their advice. But as I have done that so far, with at least one person, she doesn't understand my situation in terms of my finances and what I'm trying to do to achieve that. So she's just do it. Just do it. Just groom dogs in your house. I'm like, well, yeah, but I just can't make it appear.
Yeah. Well, she might not know about everything behind the permitting, right?
Yeah, that too, because it's a whole different operation when you're doing it outside of your house.
Well, this is the whole reason why you're not doing it is because, I mean, your permitting is, I mean, that's a major hurdle you have to get over.
Correct. So I haven't really reached out beyond some initial questions.
So let me, I mean, if you don't mind my saying, you know, and this is the same thing for me, having a mentor. Sorry, I'm having trouble with that sweet spot again. Having a mentor. Yeah, I mean, I know I see where you're coming from on this, and it's tough. And, you know, and I don't have any experience in this area either, because I've been really, really just, I'm so goddamn stubborn. And I think a big part of that stubbornness is controlled by fear. You know, and it's that fear of criticism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole deal with this conversation with Tim, it boiled down to why I hadn't. So the book's been for sale for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
It took me 2 weeks to give him the book. The book's actually been finished from the editing phase for about a month.
Yeah.
Why has it taken me over a month? You know what I mean? And it's because of that fear. And so the deal is that I knew that when I sent in, and, you know, and anything, and this is why I haven't talked to him since the business was supposed to be something else. You know, I had a pretty good idea of what his stance on my positions, you know, what his point of view would be, what his response to my, you know what I mean? And I think that because I knew that it wasn't so much, it was just, how am I going to feel? I'm afraid of how I'm going to feel. I'm afraid of how I'm going to react. And I think that, you know, was I dragging my feet about reaching out to him? Oh, most definitely. But you know, was it because I'm a wimp? I think I was waiting until I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to grow to the point that I needed to be ready. Now, there's another individual that and we were talking about this morning. There's another individual I mean to reach out to. Oh no, was I talking to you? Maybe it was a journal entry. But there's another individual I mean to reach out to who I don't know, but who is also a leader in the field. And he's very much doing something in a similar fashion to what I'm doing. He's you know, a CEO of an electrical contracting business in Texas, which apparently is doing very well. But he's also a member of the IEC, and he's running a program for the IEC that is very specifically tuned towards growing project managers within the business. Now, project management for electrical construction or for, you know, any subcontracting doesn't have widespread programs, or at least historically it hasn't. You more often than not, people are learning project management for subcontracting on the fly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is how it happened for me. I mean, I did get a certification, and it was through the IEC actually. Um, uh, and but Tim learned the hard way. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but having a structured, educational program behind it would certainly, provide a lot more success and a lot less failure. Right. So at any rate, this gentleman is doing that. And the crux of why I wrote the book has to do with training. It's just people in the trades are not being trained beyond the actual trade. And, it's one thing to learn your craft. It's another thing entirely to learn everything that goes with it. How to manage projects, how to manage projects from in the field, how to manage crews, how to manage, how to estimate, how to, manage projects from how to manage multiple projects, how to take care of payroll, how to take care, all these things. And nobody, there's no specific training for electrical contracting or subcontracting in any way geared towards those things beyond, maybe somebody wrote a book about something somewhere, and there are estimating books and there's, so on and so forth, but there's no, there's nobody growing you from the time you entered a trade beyond the trade itself. And that was and so now that's what this gentleman, I'm trying, Brian Brinkman. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I don't have a tab open right now for it. But but at any rate, through the IEC, he's been offering up this program. It's mostly within the Southeast. I think they've got some pilot programs running in the Michigan area as well, but and they're having massive success with it, which is fantastic, because this is the sort of thing that I think is really missing within the industry. Is there's too many people learning like Tim did, and big way learning the way I did. There was no class on being a foreman. I watched other people be a foreman for my entire apprenticeship, and then I was just kind of thrust into it once I had a license, and learned by doing. And and there were plenty of ways that I could have improved, that I only saw when I was a project manager, which is not very useful to me. That I need to be a project manager now, not a foreman.
Right.
So at any rate, beyond all that, this is the next step. This is it's like, so here's my book. It talks about all the things that you're doing, plus plus business, plus, all these other things. And, and that criticism that comes back is, and that's the fear. So, so in here in the notes, what are the uncomfortable asks with vendors? Now
I have no idea.
So we'll just move beyond that.
Okay.
But I think that, I think it's a really important thing. Again, mentorship is really, having a good mentor as an entrepreneur is really, it's a must. But it's, there are some aspects to it that are tough to get beyond, such as, making that person understand your situation better so that they can help you. Now, something that John talks about too is that relationship with your mentor is a two-way street. So you need to provide something of value to your mentor as well, especially if you're reaching out to somebody that you don't know, that doesn't already have some personal investment with you.
Right.
You need to come to the table with something for them too. Realistically, to mentor somebody it will provide you with your own personal growth. Doing something in the service of others is always good. It's always good for you. Right.
Yeah.
So, So all that being said, first of all, the last episode that we released was recorded before your big moment. And now your big moment's out of the way. So I'm talking about the baptism.
Oh.
You want to talk about that? Talk about your experience there. I mean, so why, first of all, did you feel the need to be baptized? And secondly, what was that like for you?
Baptism is essentially telling the world about your
confirming your faith for the world.
Yes.
Okay.
And after a very powerful sermon on Easter Sunday, I felt that it was time that I've accepted Christ as my Savior, and it was time to share that. The experience was being raised in the Catholic Church. It was very different. It's the very they dunk you in the tub kind of full body.
Well, it's important to point out too that in the Catholic Church you're baptized without
yes,
you have no consent and you don't even know
what's happening.
What's going on. What the hell? Why'd you put me in the water?
So
am I taking a bath?
Well, they don't actually put you in the water.
I don't remember what happened at Liam. I see. Liam's is. Oh no, I was there for little Eric's baptism too, right?
Yes,
you
were
and I
there.
went to that. Yeah, I don't remember the process from the Catholic side.
Anyway. So there were several of us being baptized that day, not just me. And you do it in front of the entire church. I don't want to call her an announcer, but that's basically what she does. She does announcements and
she read
so forth. So
she read a testimony.
She read my testimony, and I
actually have that clip. We could attach it to the.
Yeah, that's okay.
No. Okay.
She read my testimony. The gentleman doing the baptizing asked me if I accept Christ as my Savior. I say yes, and I get don't.
He did more than just ask you that, though. He had a whole spiel.
He says a little. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So it was a very and it was followed by a great sermon, great service. It was a very moving experience. I felt like that I am actually really part of this church and part of the church family and
community. Yeah,
the community. And along with that, I've decided to go back to Bible study, weekly Bible study. So I'll be doing that as well.
Yeah.
But it was a moving experience.
Good. And so that and I kind of touched on this a little bit before. So essentially, I mean, what does it mean to accept Christ as your Savior? You're surrendering yourself to Christ.
Yes, and it is a very difficult thing because
that's faith, right?
Faith is
surrender.
It's surrender, and for somebody much like myself who likes to be in control, that's a very difficult thing to do. Now, that being said, A lot of people say if you're having troubles or a crisis situation, or something happening in your life that you're not happy with,
Yeah.
well, give it up to God. That's what they say. Well, that's not easy to do.
No.
And giving it up to God doesn't mean I don't like God, fix it, and that's the end of it. It's choosing to make right choices and learning
Grow.
and growing, really,
Grow.
to fix whatever situation you're in, if that's the problem, or
So, I mean, I'm sorry. I can see you're struggling to pick the words, right?
yeah.
So I'm just going to interject just to say that so I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. Once again, as I've said many times, John Maxwell is before he became a coach, before he became a leader of leaders, as it were. He actually, and I mean, this was his passion as he went into his chosen field, but his chosen field was ministry.
Yes.
And so the way that he, and the reason why I bring this up is because all of his, what's great about his, his leadership coaching and his books and all of his speeches and everything is that he rarely touches on God.
Mm-hmm.
He mostly touches on it in relation to his personal growth through his career as a minister,
right,
and a leader of his church. But what he refers to constantly throughout his teaching and through his writing and everything is, he talks a lot about. It's all about growth.
mm-hmm.
To be a good leader, you have to grow. You have to constantly grow. You never stop growing. And, and actually that same service in which you were baptized, we had a pretty good sermon that had to do with growth.
Yeah.
And that's actually, so I don't go to this church. This is my second time attending. I have a different way of looking at faith. It's not so far detached that I couldn't find something useful out of going, but it's, but at the same time is like, it's not, I don't have a priority in wanting to be there. And I don't feel called to be there all the time. And it's, I think it's just because I just have a different look at it. But nonetheless, in what John says, very much this is what Pastor Kevin had to say during his sermon in this service, which is to say that God calls you to grow. So doing God's work is, in essence, your first mission for God is to live your life to the fullest, to live for the experience and grow. He wants you to grow to your fullest, to get, reach your absolute maximum potential
mm-hmm.
as a human being. And that's your number one priority in the service of God. And that's entirely what Pastor Kevin had to say. And this is everything everywhere in John's teaching. And, and I mean, of course, and there's a lot of talk about this in the Bible. And we actually, we took the time, we started to watch this podcast episode, is Diary of the CEO. And he had this gentleman on from, he's a Canadian, I guess, from Ottawa or something like that. But his name is Weston Huff.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sunday, after the service, we watched the rest of that podcast episode, which was, basically like 90% of it. And very, very interesting. So Weston Huff, for anybody who's unfamiliar, he's actually been making the circuit on the podcast like recently. But this particular podcast episode was very good. I love the way Steve does his. I mean, he's very inquisitive, and he's very, he gives at no point any kind of contrary to anybody's. It's like, I want to know more about your point of view,
Right.
your experience, which I is just absolutely in the podcast industry. He's my my hero, as it were. Um, but at any rate, so Weston Huff, for anybody who's not familiar, he's a historian, but specifically he's a theologian.
Right.
So he's a Bible historian,
Yes.
and but he's also very faithful. So it's beyond just. So he's and what I found very interesting in that conversation is the way that he explained a lot of the things in the Bible in relation to physical history,
Mm-hmm.
and documented history, and what are even in relation and he's the relation to science and all those things, and and some of the things that he talked about also touch on that whole your ultimate goal from your ultimate purpose for God is to reach your highest potential. And Jordan Peterson is another very faithful man,
Mm-hmm.
who's he's controversial in quite a bit of ways, but with your more liberal crowds, because he's very, very conservative. But I think that's because of his faith and because of how devoted to his faith he is, that he's very outspoken for his faith. And but he's another one that talks about your ultimate potential, and this is the cross that we bear, as it were. I mean, if we're shouldering the cross, it's shouldering the cross for the ultimate growth,
Mm-hmm.
for the ultimate potential. And so I thought that was very, very I putting all these, connecting all these dots is very very enlightening for me. And it really kind of so in personal growth, and this is a horrible segue, but in personal growth, I have been learning more and more, and actually, no, this is a very good segue. I've been learning very, very much more and more what it means to surrender. And that's essentially what you're doing with your baptism, is that you're confirming once and for all that you are surrendering yourself to God. And in essence, this is, which is to give up control. So that we understand what this means is that there are things that are within our control, but most everything is outside our control. Right?
Yeah.
So we naturally, because the way our brains are wired, of course, is to survive any situation, and to survive, we constantly try to control everything around us, right? So so that we can respond, so that we know whether or not to fight or flee, and so on. And so that ultimate control is it's the way our brains are wired. This is a neuroscientific, which I can't give you any stats now, but or any references now, but it's been proven neuroscientifically that this is the way our brains are wired, which is to survive, to avoid this, anything that would create uncomfortable situations or whatever. And this is, so we try to control everything, and then having faith is surrendering to the idea that you're not in control, even if your faith is just understanding that you're not in control of everything, that there are things outside. I mean, that's beyond religion.
Mhm.
What I mean.
Right.
Having the faith that I'll figure it out. Even that in and of itself, right? But that's surrendering to the idea that you can't control 99% of what happens. You can only control that 1% that you choose. The choices you make, the way you feel, how you respond to the things that are going on around you, and what faith from a religious standpoint is giving that 99% the you know the ultimate image of a higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's and this is kind of going back to how we start this episode was you know in my process of trying to grow and reach my could begin to chase after my ultimate potential and so on, and answer my calling, in trying to do all of that. The one thing that I've had the most trouble with is surrendering to that which I can't control.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, fear is very much, I need to control this so that I can avoid that outcome. And there's something there. And it's like, well, why don't I need to do more, but I'm not doing enough. Well, it's surrendering to the idea that sometimes your body just has reached its peak.
Yep.
Sometimes physically things break down. So, you have to give yourself some grace, right? That's surrender. And the big thing for me in the past week that was understanding for the first time, really understanding what that meant, which was to say, no, the podcast website, this is the tab that's open. This is the one I need to close this. And even though it isn't related specifically to the business, it needs to get dealt with. And I need to surrender to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. The business, the business isn't exactly freaking screaming off the rails right now anyway. It's not demanding my attention. So yes, in order for the business to move forward, I need to do stuff with it. But I'm not completely blowing that out of the water. I'm just saying, you know what, let's give that a rest for a minute so that we can deal with the things that are really keeping me from moving. All these other open tabs are really, I clear all those open tabs. What else do I have to do but move forward?
Right.
And that was my ultimate surrender, was to say, it's okay. I needed a week, first of all, to just kind of say, hey, all right, we're out there. we're not getting we're not figuring out the things that we need to figure out right now. So let's take a minute, take a beat. We'll surrender to all that frustration, surrender to all of it, and just take a beat and figure it out and figure out what the next step is. And then it's like, well, oh, okay, so now that week comes to an end. You know what? But you got this open tab that you've been freaking it's been killing you to close for freaking, is it 9 months now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, surrendered. I surrendered to it, and guess what? This came up, and now I'm surrendering to that. And I'm going to be constantly surrendering. And, and I've come to realize that there's a reason why I'm being pushed to do things in the order in which I'm doing them. I don't know what that is.
Oh.
But that's the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surrendering to that. This is, in fact, the biggest way to move forward. And, in journaling with Mind Sarah, this is exactly the response that I'm getting from it is, yeah, okay, sit with that for a minute and realize you're making massive progress here.
Yeah.
And it's the response. You're making massive progress here. Don't think that you're not Do you realize that because you're clearing the way here, clearing the path here, and from a Taoist perspective, it loves it because I do really appreciate the Tao Te Ching, but from the Taoist perspective, it says you cannot, with a full cup, you simply cannot entertain anymore. So sometimes we just have to empty the fucking cup.
Yeah.
And so, as they say, my cup runneth over. Well, my cup runneth over. And guess what? I'm starting to tip the cup so that I can accept the next step and accept the additional growth. I got to tell you, I've never felt so. I've got a level of confidence now that I haven't had, I think, in years. And this level of confidence is just simply because of my faith that things that I just, again, you just show up. It starts with just showing up. You show up, you try to do a little bit, you let, if it's just, if you're being steered in a different direction, surrender, trust in the world. You have to do something. This is not to say, and there's a big difference to giving up versus surrendering. I'm not giving anything up. I'm surrendering to possibility, or to opportunities, to opening the doors, to surrendering to the facts, as opposed to the situations I'm imagining. I'm not doing enough. No, I'm doing plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, from the outside looking in, maybe maybe it doesn't look that way. I don't care. I've never felt better. I know. So before we wrap it up, though, I mean, do you have any take on that? Do you have, beyond, maybe within your faith, but, also, how does all that relate to your business? How does it?
I have greater confidence in my potential success. I get some roadblocks here and there, and I work through them.
Yeah.
And find solutions. And I think, my faith helps me do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so your need to control, finding it easier to now.
Yes. I mean, at the beginning of all this, I was like just kind of bonkers, but I'm just going with the flow. This is how it's supposed to happen, and just follow the road.
Okay. Great. It's great. I want to close with this. As your husband, I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
The amount of stuff that you've gone through in a very, very short amount of time. Having been fired, not knowing how you're going to, it started with the courage to say, I need to do something different. But then, having it all come crash down, and then picking yourself back up, finding your faith, committing to your faith, and you show up every morning with me.
Mm-hmm.
And you 200 entries now?
202.
So that's 202 mornings that you've shown up in a row.
Yep.
So that's, very, very proud of you. And you're keeping your head up. It's not always easy, and we all have our moments of, we're just slipping to those, like, I don't know. I don't know. But you get through it. Together, we get through a lot. It's very important to me that you're with me on my journey, and it's, and it's even more important to me, I think, at this point, to see that you're taking your own journey, and progressing as far as you are. So, I've already kind of went over our time here because we've got to get going.
Yeah.
But I'll just close out, just kind of say that, if you're in the business of changing your life in seeking out financial independence, or chasing your dream, or whatever, at no age is too late. If you're alive, you can still do it. It's not about the destination. It's about the effort and the journey made. That is the most important thing. And I would say, get comfortable with surrendering yourself. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Certainly with the proper support, and you can find support everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere you're not looking, probably.
Yeah.
But you can find support. Certainly, it can be done. And, while it doesn't appear on the surface right now that we're successful, we're very successful. Just our complete change in mindset from a year ago is
right
evidence of that.
Yeah.
So, with all that being said, I would very much appreciate, this is me reaching out. First of all, check out evec-community.org. This is where you can find my book, The Iron Academy. This is specifically geared towards contracting businesses, and in relation to training, and so on, and the ultimate effects on business that can have. Check that out. But for those that are not at all interested in that sort of thing, please like, comment, share. Maybe just whatever Facebook post you see, or whatever, but like, comment, share. Keep doing it every time the new episode comes out. We very much appreciate it, because it helps with the algorithm, and more people will see it. As is the case with anything, there's always somebody out there who's looking to learn. So we would both very much appreciate if you do that. We don't make money from this. So this is, potentially someday, but that's not why we're doing this. And so, your help to help others, your help will help others eventually. Because, just seeing other people going through what you're going through is a lot of help.
Yeah.
And with all that said, thank you very much for joining us this week. I hope you'll join us again next week. And we're making a commitment every week.
Every week.
We don't want to fall out of rotation.
Yeah.
So thank you guys, and have a good week. We'll see you next week.